Hello everyone, welcome to the United Nations Association of Minnesota broadcast. I'm FADIA THABET, I'm from Yemen. I'm a HUMPHREY alumni, and I have today DARIN. She's from Palestine. She's a HUMPHREY 2016, and I'm going to ask her a couple of questions based on her experience. Welcome DARIN. I want to ask you the first question. Tell me a little bit about yourself and where are you from?
Hi, Fadia and everyone. I'm DARIN Hussein. I'm from Palestine. I live in the West Bank, Ramallah. They consider it as an economic capital. I worked for almost 10 years in developing sector, mainly in youth employment, in an NGO called Palestine Education for Employment Foundation. It's an affiliation with other 5 NGOs located in the Arab region. And I was focusing on providing the skills that the university graduate need in order to be employable and link them with the private sector.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience from your home country with the youth employment and engagement?
So I worked in Ramallah, but our work was across the West Bank and Gaza. We were targeting young people, university graduates, because youth unemployment is above 26%. And it's one of the main challenges facing young people. As you know, the political situation and the occupation has been affected the economic and the whole situation. We have no control on the borders. We have restriction of movements, and many incidents happened that affected the economy. And that's why we have focused on education for employment started in 2009 in order to be able to help young people to get jobs and create more job opportunity. So I started in this NGO as a monitoring and evaluation officer. We try to design our programs based on the market needs, and we built a good connection with the private sector to see what exactly the skills they need.
But the market needs actually affected by the conflict all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, as you know, because I lived in Palestine, and Palestine have a unique situation being under occupation for almost 68 years and have different incidents since 1948, it has been a challenges because we had in the beginning in the 90s Oslo Agreement, which tie our economy with the occupation. And that has affected our situation. And after a couple of years, the second Intifada uprising started, and the second uprising has affected directly the situation in Palestine. And what happened basically as a result of the second uprising, the wall was built, checkpoints have been increased in the West Bank, expand of building settlements, and all has affected the agriculture, which is the main sector of our economy. Beside that, of course, the freedom of movement, exporting and importing has been affected. Bringing equipments, even services have been affected. So we have to come up with new ways or being more creative in order to absorb or be able to create job opportunities. And that's why we started EFE as an NGO in order to help young people to get jobs. And also our educational system was affected with the occupation, unfortunately. And that's why you have always to bridge the gap between the education and the market. And we played the role in between these two institutions in order to determine the needs of the private sector and then provide the skills for unemployed youth in order to link them with the private sector. And the 3 prominent or promising sector was agriculture, tourism, and IT. And the 3 sectors were affected heavily from the occupation and from the closure. The wall was built on agricultural land, and that dropped the increase of producing our own vegetables and agriculture market. Unfortunately, the farmers couldn't export and import according to the closure and restriction of movement. Tourism has been affected because of the second Intifada, and because of many people thought that it's a risky area, so also tourism has dropped. IT sector also have been affected by different factors, education and political situation and everything else. So basically, during my job, I was able to work with young people and see what the skills that they are lacking in order to be able to be employed. We worked for a couple of years, but unfortunately, our university produced a huge number of graduates that the market cannot absorb. So basically, we have almost 35,000 graduates every year, and the market can take only 5,000. So basically, you are producing graduates, but the market cannot take any more. And in the future, that's a huge problem for you, because you will not be able to secure jobs for this number of people, and then they will become desperate, helpless, hopeless, and it will affect all your society basically. And that's why we come up with another training program called entrepreneurship, where we try to encourage people to start their own businesses.
How many students that you target, or how many youth you are targeting in that program?
We targeted not so many, around 500, because also starting your business is not easy.
But you need the skills to start this
We
business.
have the skills. Our education system is not prepared to prepare these young people to start their own businesses. So we have to start from scratch, basically, to train them how to do a business plan, how to bring investors and people who can fund their programs. And after all, even after we give them the training, the government, our government, is not providing them or not facilitating the process of registering their own businesses. And they pay a lot of taxes, they pay registration fees. So the student, or let me say, the graduate feel insecure to start their own businesses because they don't have the money to do it. And they are afraid to pay high amount of interest. So that's why we try to create revolving funding. This revolving funding is basically providing these young people with some funding in order to start their own businesses with low interest rate. But still, it remains an issue, because even if they produce something, our economy is very dependent on the Israeli economy, and our raw material come from there. And because of the restriction of movement and our relationship with Israel and the occupation, they cannot even afford the raw materials or have access to these raw materials. So basically, if you want to create job opportunity, you need more investments, but you cannot basically provide training for young people and leave them, because you need to create environment to have more investment in the market. That how you can create job opportunity and make the market flourish and be able to employ more people. But it's been very difficult for us as Palestinians to do this, especially with so many incidents that happened in the past because of the occupation. But we always think about other ways. So our last training program was virtual jobs. As you know, Gaza has been under blockade and restriction for so many years. So we come up with virtual jobs where we train young people to work in Gaza, but with companies outside Gaza, in Australia, in US, and do translation, designing websites, and some kind of skills. We train them in order to be employed, but while they are in their cities, not leaving, and help these companies. It worked well. We did a pilot project just before I came here. It worked well. We managed to train 25 young people and connect them with different companies. But unfortunately, this kind of training, you need so much effort to identify companies, to outreach, to network in order to market these students. So it's not easy, but I think it's a way, especially for occupied area and closed area. It's another way to connect them and not depend on your market, but basically depend on other markets to get people employed. So basically that's what I have been doing for the past couple of years. It's challenging. Every time we're trying to come up with new solutions or be creative about it, but still the situation is not as easy as we think. and there should be a solution for that in terms of end the occupation, have the freedom of movement, and encourage people to do more investment. Otherwise, you won't be able to make any change in the economy.
Okay, let me ask you the third question. What do you think from your experience in Palestine, especially West Bank, would be applicable to other countries dealing with the same issues that related to youth employment?
Yes, of course. Our model actually can work perfectly
In any other
in any
countries.
other country except for Palestine, because the model we have is basically bridging the gap and matching between the educational system and the market through identifying the skills that the private sector needs, and then prepare these young people and provide them with the training that these companies need, and then match them after they finish. And today I had a visit, we visited a company here in the state, recycling company, waste management, and it was interesting for me because the guy said that in 5 years they will open around 100,000 job opportunities for people, and they feel if they don't find trained people, they will have an issue. So basically, if I'm here and I have my own NGO, I will start working with educational institution in order to fill this gap in 5 years, and I will be able to work with these educational institution, provide the training, see what they need, and then immediately channel these young people when they finish into this place. Mm-hmm. So the model worked perfectly in any place, especially if you have a good investment and the demand is good for people who would like to work in the market. So,
okay, perfect. I have the last question, and then I want to dig a little bit about your personal story, if you allow me to do that. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the most important aspect for diplomacy in dealing with other countries and also Palestine?
Can you...
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What do you think is the most important aspect of diplomacy in dealing with Palestine? What we can change in the U.S. foreign policies about Palestine, and how they can change their foreign policy to address the violations, the gap, the limited resources that all Palestinians are suffering from?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a very important question
and hard
and hard to answer, because I think we've been trying for the past 20 years with negotiation to raise our voice and change the American
But as a woman and someone from West Bank under the occupations, what do you think that the foreign policy can do differently to address Palestinians?
Well, I think now the realistic or the solution that we have all to work on it and improve it is this two-state solution, where we have Palestine and have freedom of movement as any other country, have the ability to, have open borders basically and not be under occupation anymore. I think that's the main solution for our cause. It's not about investing more in our economy, because even if we are investing more and putting money, if the market is closed and you cannot really be open to your neighboring country or export and import, basically you're doing nothing. You're just pouring this money for nothing. And I think we should emphasize as Palestinian that we need to live normally. We need to have normal
It's your
life
basic rights.
And yeah, exactly. We're not asking to go to the moon. We're asking to get our basic rights. And one of them is, for example, water resources. If we're going to talk about one small thing that we think is like a human, this is the right of any human anywhere in the world, is water resources. And after Oslo Agreement, Israel is controlling 80% of our water resources. And we're using only 80 liters per year, or so basically the Israeli are using triple than the Palestinian, and especially the illegal settlements in the West Bank, they use triple the time we're using. When it comes to water, they use 3 times, and we have no control over our resources, water resources. And that's something I think that none of the countries, especially US, would agree on. We're here and we're learning about human rights. We're learning about how to be free, how to speak about our, how to get our freedom, and how to be inclusive, and all this kind of and justice, most importantly. And when it comes to reality, it's not there, unfortunately. So that's something I think we're not asking for something new, a miracle to happen. We're just asking to have our basic right like any other nation, which is having our freedom and have access to basic human rights, which is water, electricity, job opportunity, economic development, opening borders, freedom of movement. So that is what we are asking for.
Okay, Darin, I want to ask you, I know it's a personal question, but I want to highlight, and especially that you came from Palestine. What exactly mean to you that you grow up under the occupations? And I can see from your resume that during the 10 years of experience, you did your master's degree in UK. What your life looked like during the occupations, and how you witnessed all these violations. And we are from the Middle East, also following all the time the Palestinian cause that happened since 1948.
1948.
Yes, exactly. So what exactly mean to you that you just like you grow up under the occupations and you witness all this kind of things? But the thing is also, I wanted to highlight that the power that you have to move forward, and as a woman from the West Bank, and getting your degree and getting also your professional career.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not different like any other Palestinian. We always say that Palestinian, wherever they go, they have no plan B, so they have to work hard and be
adapt.
And adapt wherever they go. So I was born in Jordan, and I moved to different Arab countries with my family in Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, and finally after Oslo Agreement I was able to move to Palestine. So my childhood was in between different places, and this helped me a lot to be able to adjust wherever I go. It's not something that I feel I'm facing any issue. After going back to Palestine, I start doing my high school, and when I was doing my high school, the second intifada started, and it wasn't easy. I still remember that when I was doing my exams, the tanks were outside, and we were just trying to finish no matter what in order to go home. And we've been under curfew for so many hours. And now when I think about it, it feels so strange, because the abnormal becomes normal for you, and you feel that you're adjusting, and it's okay to walk around your hometown and show your stop by a checkpoint, Israeli checkpoint, and then have to show your ID and then search your car and go to another place. It was an easy experience, and you adjust, and you start to see it as a normal thing. But then I moved after I finished my undergrad in Palestine and worked for 7 years or 8 years. I moved to the UK to obtain my master's degree in international development. And I experienced freedom of movement in the UK and going everywhere without even showing a passport. And going back home again, the truth hit me in the face, and I start to feel, okay, this is not normal. And that's not okay for us to be under occupation for so many years and not do nothing. Basically, we're doing something and we're trying hard, but it's not changing anything. So you start to think about other alternatives. You start to feel more that you need to do something as a Palestinian, as a woman living under occupation, and you always see hope, because if we see everything and we observe everything, we will explode. But you always see hope, and you always think, okay, I'm gonna make a change. I will work with young people, and that's something I felt very special, because working with young people give you nice energy, especially that many of them, they cannot travel.
And that's part of the resilience that we have.
Exactly, it is part of our resilience. When they told me how, when I was talking about my experience, they tell me, how do you survive and how do you manage to be there? And I was telling them, well, it's part of our resilience to be there. Why you don't move out? I told them, well, if all of us will move out, nobody will be there, and we're very connected to the land. It's not easy just to leave the place and say, okay, I'm not gonna be involved anymore. And somehow these young people taught me so many things, because many of them cannot travel. They even never travel outside their cities. And having the privilege and traveling abroad and going back, I feel responsible for transferring my knowledge to them and be able to talk and having group and having community services. So you always feel connected with them, and they give you the energy and hope to do and work for the community. So that's it. That's my story. In
Okay.
brief.
Yeah, just like one last question. If you can give the students that one advice who are graduate from the US as a youth, as also an expert with the youth employment, what is the advice that you're going to give it to them with all the resources that they have it here in the US?
Well, first of all, I will tell them that they are very lucky. I wish that somebody asked me before coming to this world, which nationality would you choose? I would choose to come here, because they have access to everything, to education, to basic human rights, and you can tell that they are in a very good, well-developed country. And that's why they should take advantage of that and educate themselves more about other countries, and not having if they hear something or see something in the news, they should be responsible to educate themselves and not having one stereotype about one country. At the same time, the future is in front of them. So what they have to do is always be engaged and work and do voluntary work and engage with the community and learn other people's stories in order to build their future and know what they want in the future. And best of luck to all of them.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Darine. It was wonderful to have you, and best of luck.
Thank you.